All right. Well, welcome everybody. Put in your comments where you're tuning in from. I'm in Paris right now. From Lithuania. Hi, Laura. And Owen, you're outside of London, right?
Yeah, I'm in Exeter.
Slovakia. Ooh, Washington, D.C. Hey, Susan. She comes to a lot of these events. I'm a little biased on that one, just a tad. We'll give a couple minutes here to get everyone on. I know sometimes it takes a minute, and then we'll go ahead and start. California. All right, I think we can go ahead and get started. So welcome everybody. We're doing a cold call teardown today with Owen. He is the founder and CEO of Air Marketing, which is a sales and marketing agency. And before this, he was working as a director of business development. And if you've seen Owen's content before, you know he believes that the phone is your biggest tool as a sales professional in the B2B space. So I'm so excited to see what he has to say today. All right, let's go ahead and go through this. So we're going to start with some teardowns. Just to let you guys know, I saw when you were signing up that most people here are beginners and intermediates. So I'm super excited to see what we can kind of provide you with and to look at these scripts that you guys sent in. Also, just so you know, though, we added some tips in so that way, if you haven't started cold calling yet, you can get some ideas on where to start. All right, let's go through. Okay, perfect. So this is the first one. It says, hi, first name. This is sender name from company X. How are you? We're the industry leader in enterprise design software. I'd love to describe our new platform and get you onboarded. It's a great opportunity for you. And then after that, they go through basically their script to describe the platform. So this is a sales rep for a design software company. They're targeting heads of designs, and this is their first time cold calling. So this is the first draft script that they came up with, and I'm excited to see what Owen has to say about it.
Good stuff. Thanks, Brianna. So my thoughts around this are we've got a bit of work to do as starters. I think how are you in a cold call is something that I've preached about for many a year. It's something I'd encourage you to remove from your initial opening of a cold call. I'll tell you why. First and foremost, certainly in Europe at least, and to some degree in other countries as well, what you'll find is that people ask how are you out of habit rather than with sincerity, and starting a conversation and engagement with a human that you've never had a conversation with before with something that's insincere. Often it's a space filler, and it doesn't actually add any value to the conversation. When you think about what somebody answering the phone is thinking when you phone them out of the blue, they're thinking, who are you and what do you want? So we've got to get to that in a matter of seconds, and we've got to address what's top of mind for the prospect. How are you is not that. It gets in the way and it slows you down, and you're using valuable seconds. And further to that, most people will simply give you a, yeah, I'm fine, and move on. So it really is a space filler rather than a value add. In terms of the next sentence, we're the industry leader in enterprise design software. My advice to you would be to immediately focus on your prospect and what's important to them rather than what you do. Prospects don't book meetings with you because of what you do. They book meetings with you because of how you can help them or the problem that you can solve for them. So the words industry leader are very generic. What does it mean? How do you determine what an industry leader is? And you're talking about yourself at a point where you want to be getting them to talk about themselves. So I would be looking to flip that to say, we help organizations such as X, Y, or Z. So let's say you help manufacturing companies or software companies. We help software companies to achieve X, Y, and Z. We help software companies to achieve incredible software design, or we help software companies to solve some of the biggest challenges that they have with their design software. Whatever it might be that you help an organization to achieve or to avoid from a pain point, get straight to the crux of it, get straight to the point. That sentence, we're the industry leader in an enterprise design software, it doesn't actually mean very much, and it becomes almost a marketing script rather than a sales script. I quite like the human element of, I'd love to describe our new platform and get you onboarded. Quite direct in terms of the get you onboarded. Might be a bit ahead of the time there in terms of saying that. But I like the idea of, I'd love to describe our new platform. However, I'd suggest that comes later in the conversation. Again, your elevator pitch, which you've got 10, 15 seconds to deliver effectively, needs to be about them and the problems you solve for them, and not about you. You've immediately said, I'd like to describe my problem, my stuff. I haven't had any opportunity to qualify or to talk about them at this point. So I'd be looking to flip it around the other way.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with you. Also, saying the word onboarded right in the beginning is very scary when you're just getting a cold call on the receiving end. So definitely be careful about that. So the next one we'll go through here. So this one, she is a sales agent for a recruitment agency, and they are targeting CTOs of medium-sized startups. They got advice on this script from someone and want a second opinion basically before testing it out. And this would be the third or fourth step in the sequence. That gave me a bit of context in this. So that says, hey, is this first name? This is rep name from company X. Not sure if that sounds familiar. Sure, no reason to sound familiar. Is this the worst time ever? Completely understand. I know. And by the way, so they would answer these questions, of course, as we go, but this is pretty much the entire script here. So completely understand. And I know I caught you out of the blue. Can I take 15 seconds of your time now so I don't have to reach out tomorrow? Thank you. I speak to a lot of CTOs and they tell me it's really hard to find good quality devs. It takes an average of 6 months to recruit even one dev. And even if they succeed, oftentimes there's a hefty learning curve because the dev might not have experience with the tools the company currently uses. How's your team handling this? Have you guys thought about outsourcing your recruitment process to save time and get better quality devs handpicked? Are you up for a call Thursday to talk about how we can improve this process and start hiring better devs faster?
Oh, there's a lot in here to cover.
There's a lot.
Let me go through line by line and just try and cover each of them quickly. Personal preference. This is nothing else. Not sure if the name sounds familiar. I think if it's coming in a sequence, I guess that might add some value. I guess it depends on the data and what it's telling you before that around whether they have seen the content that's coming from you. If you know they haven't opened it, then again, it's a bit of a time filler. It's a bit of a time waster in some ways. And I always talk about, you want yeses, not nos in a conversation. So if you're going to ask a question and the chances are the answer is going to be no, you're already starting to bleed negativity into the conversation rather than positivity. Not necessarily the best start. So I'm not a huge fan of that unless you know is likely to be familiar. I do like the human element of no reason for it to sound familiar, but you wouldn't be in that position if you didn't take that. I'd be looking to replace that with it's rep name from company X, just hoping you can help me out for a moment, something like that. Let them say, oh, I know you, and it almost adds a positive to the conversation. I kind of like that. Is this the worst time ever? I think it's one of those things where if it's delivered with the right tone, it can work really well. Delivered with the wrong tone, you can fall flat on your face. So be careful of tone there. My advice to most of our team and the people I consult to is you've got to practice it. Practice how that sounds. Listen to yourself back and make sure you're delivering it with a little bit of jest or cheekiness in there, and you might get away with it if you've got that kind of personality. The 15-second bit is the bit that I like least from this. I think we undervalue ourselves as salespeople way too much. And the reality is, I don't want 15 seconds from you. I want a hell of a lot longer than that. And my product or my service is worth more than 15 seconds. And I need to stand proud and be confident in that. I think the moment you say 15 seconds, one of two things happens. One, it undervalues what you've got to talk about. And two, I know it's a lie. You're not being authentic with me. You're not being genuine. You want more of my time. You want to have a proper conversation. 15 seconds is simply not enough. So I would avoid those short time frames that undersell you. What I do like about this is I speak to a lot of CTOs and they tell me this. That makes you really relevant. If those are the right problems and you know your market well, and you can point out the likely challenges that CTO you're talking to has, and they can associate with those, you've done a hell of a lot of the heavy lifting in terms of building rapport and getting relevancy in that conversation. So I like that part of the conversation. What I would say, though, is diving straight into questions is something that I have a personal gripe with. So I would always link after my elevator pitch, where we've said, I speak to a lot of CTOs that I would move into something along the lines of, now, look, I don't know enough about your situation to know if something like this would even make sense for you. So would it be okay if I ask you just a couple of quick questions? Almost earn the right to ask the questions, but get permission to go into the next part of the conversation. It's actually a really nice validation tool, and it doesn't feel rude, it does feel rude to me to tell me what you do or how you solve a problem and then just ask a question. Maybe I don't want to answer that question. And if I don't, you're better to find out now so you can handle my objection, or so that you can know that I'm going to waste your time going and trying to have that conversation. So don't bully your way through to questions. Earn the right to be in that two-way discovery process. My only other point on this one is that question: have you guys thought through outsourcing your recruitment process? Very early, it's a very pointed, closed question, and I'd be looking to open that up. My advice with questioning is start broad, ask really easy to answer questions. Things like, how's your team handling this? It's quite a big question. There's a lot of context. Give me something easy to ask first. How many people you got in your team? How regularly do you hire for these sorts of things? Something that I can just give you the answer to without thinking much and get this conversation flowing. Once it's flowing, I can be a bit more specific with the questions that I ask.
I love that. That's a great advice to start with easy questions. And I think it also helps them to like you said, get in the flow of things, to kind of start answering your question.
Get to know you as a conversation. It's about it being two-way, not one way.
Yeah. And especially for people, sometimes they might be kind of uncomfortable, and this is sort of also fighting that fight or flight response and keeping them on and making them comfortable right from the start.
I also got trust. Like, you've got to get that person trusting you in that call. And if you walked up to me in the pub and said, hey, how do you deal with this? I go, whoa, I don't know. If you walked up to me and said, oh, what's your name? It's an easy one for me to answer, and it starts the conversation. Maybe you can ask me that in a minute or two, but maybe not straight off the bat.
Yeah. I love that. Okay, perfect. So this one is after getting some info from a gatekeeper. Yep. So first they basically called a gatekeeper, and it's like a secretary or someone from the front desk, let's say, and they provided with the correct prospect information, and she's calling them directly for the first time. This is a marketing director for a B2B content creation company. They're targeting SMBs who cater to outdoor enthusiasts and adventure travel. So it says, hi, first name, I'm sender name with the Y project. I talked to Alex in customer service, who said you were the man to talk to regarding ambassadors and athletes. I'm calling today to set up a meeting between you, myself, and the creative director with their name to learn a bit about your goals and company names objectives to see if your project would align well. Do you have some time on Thursday or Friday morning for a quick chat?
Yeah, look, this has got a really clear theme to it, hasn't it? Which is, it's very assumptive. I kind of like the first bit where you're saying to somebody, I've spoken to somebody, they said you're the man to talk to. I think so long as you've got that right, that's good. And it shows that you've gone and done your research. Be careful, though. It doesn't earn the right to sell to somebody. It doesn't earn the right to have a meeting. That person is a human in their own right, has a view on their budget and their priorities and what's going on in their business. So just because you spoke to Alex in customer service and he or she said you were the right person to talk to doesn't mean I want to talk to you. So that would be my first point, but I think it's the right way to start. The second piece of this, or the second paragraph to me, is it is dangerous. Now, I'll give some context behind that, because what I don't understand is how this industry works and whether people would know the organization and how relevant it is. But you've not really told me how you can help me or what's in it for me at this point. And it's very assumptive to say, I'm calling today to set up a meeting between you. If somebody phoned me and said, I'm calling you today to set up a meeting, I would think, what meeting? I haven't agreed to a meeting. Now, I do think it would work with certain personalities. And I think one of the things that's true of this script here is that you got to be ready to go and do the next bit afterwards, which is go and do the discovery and have the relevant conversations that you need to. I don't think we go into this and expect people to say, yeah, fine, I'll book a meeting, because you haven't actually given me a reason to have a meeting yet. You've not told me what you could do, and you haven't told me how you can help me. So, it's lovely to hear that you want to meet with me, but my time is precious. Everyone wants to meet with me. I've got to say yes to the people that I actually think can add value, and I don't actually know what value you can add yet. So I would say there's a lot missing from this in terms of context and making yourself relevant and earning the credibility to ask for time and ask for a meeting. I don't think you've done it yet. Having said that, what it does do is get a response. So people will say, well, hang on a second, and they'll get into a conversation. And what you achieve by that is being in a two-way conversation that becomes a bit more natural. So there is an upside to it. I do think you have to be brave to use this kind of script and use it effectively, though. And I wouldn't encourage this approach as best practice.
All right. Yep. I absolutely agree. I think if I got a call that was asking directly to set up a meeting, I would be a little scared of that. So definitely on the same page there. And then, okay, I believe this will be our last breakdown before we move to some tips. So this one is a call after freemium drop off. So this is a full cycle sales rep for an association management software. They're targeting association managers. And they said that this is the script they use when calling an account after they haven't been active on their freemium account. And the goal is to book a call with the head of sales to get into details and see if they can keep the account. So this is, hi, first name, I'm sender name from company X. I saw you guys started a plan with us in March, but you haven't used it in a couple months. I was just calling to see if there was anything we could have done to improve your experience with the platform. Can we set up a call with you and name our success manager to see how we can better help you manage your association?
So here's the thing, and I see this in a lot of sales scripts and cold calling scripts. Although this isn't cold calling, it's a little warmer than that. I feel like we all want to rush to booking a meeting and asking a meeting, and we stop to have we stop thinking about the fact that we want to build rapport, we want to earn trust, and we want to have a human conversation with people. Meetings are much easier to book with people who like you, trust you, and see you as credible. And in all of these, we're almost rushing towards it. So with this, it's a fairly simple one. The tweaks that I would be making this is, I'd say, I'm Owen calling from company X. I saw you guys started a plan with this in March, but I'm conscious you haven't used it in a couple of months. I think that's absolutely fine. I was just giving you a call, and at this point, I'd be looking to get into discovery, just a mini discovery. I was just giving you a call to see if I could ask you a couple of quick questions about your experience with the platform. So I think asking or saying I was calling to see if there was anything we could have done to improve the service of the platform, it kind of puts the onus on the user, the prospect, to think about feedback. You've called them off out of the blue, off the cuff. They're not prepared for that conversation. They probably haven't thought about it for 2 months. So how relevant is that feedback really going to be, or how on point is it going to be at that point? I think the responsibility is on you as the provider to ask the right questions to get the right feedback. And we want to get into the feedback conversation so that we can justify the call at the end of it. So I would be saying, I was just calling to see if I could ask you a couple of quick questions and get some feedback on your experience so far. Could I just ask you 2 or 3 questions? Yeah, go ahead. Okay, fine. And I would have 2 or 3 really good questions that get a conversation flowing off the back of it. And then from there, off the back of those, I can say, look, that's really valuable feedback. Thank you. What I'd like to do, and I wouldn't be saying, can we set up a call? I'd be making a recommendation. What I'd like to do, what I'd recommend is that I set up a call for you and so, our success manager, to see if we can help better align this or help you manage the work that we do with you better. And you've kind of earned the right to do that through that two-way natural conversation and through asking good questions. So I think this script misses the questions. Otherwise, we're just allowing the prospect to give whatever feedback they want to give, which might be totally irrelevant, might be them thinking of another software they tried. And actually, you're then in control of the conversation. Whereas in this scenario, you're handing the control to the prospect who's got no idea this call is about to happen. So yeah, 2 changes: get into feedback, or 3, get into making the call purpose about feedback, because you want to get into a 2-way natural conversation and earn some trust and build some rapport. Have the questions prepared so that you know those are good questions to ask. And then finally, make sure that you are closing with a recommendation and not a request.
That's a great tip about having a recommendation. It comes off much friendlier and less cold, like, please have a meeting with our sales manager.
Yeah, and you can only do a recommendation if you've had the conversation before, where you've got the
Exactly.
context.
Yeah, it
So
shows that
that's
you're
why
paying
those
attention to
people
what they're
say,
saying, and this is truly what you believe.
yeah, precisely.
All right, so let's go ahead and move on then. So now I know a lot of you guys are not sure how to add cold calls into your sequences. We did the past few teardowns and everyone asked, I mean, we had this question in all of them, how would you add a cold call here? I mean, would you add a cold call? So I think it's great to kind of go through a real sequence and see where Owen would add one here. So let's go ahead and go into it. So this one was a sequence that is basically revolved around one resource that they're sharing, and it is 7 steps with LinkedIn and email. So we'll go into it. The first step would be an invite for their LinkedIn profile, and then they have an email here. So it's hi first name with an icebreaker. It made me think you must have understood the importance of branding, which combined with a solid outreach process can be a real solid combination. I create outreach campaigns that generate 5 to 10 calls per week for SaaS founders. Happy to have a chat and share what currently works. Would you be up for it? Kind regards, and then the person's name. P.S. My team and I have created a free actionable resource that can help you generate 5 to 10 new discovery calls per week. If you don't want to have a chat, I could send it your way. And then it would move on to they would visit the LinkedIn profile one day later and then send a message. Hi, first name, a version of the icebreaker that they used in the step 2. How are you guys doing on your outbound campaigns right now? Kind regards, their name. Then another follow-up email. Hi, first name. Couldn't wait no more. I really believe this strategy and templates would really work for your lead generation. Don't take it from me. A recent SaaS founder I worked with booked 30 meetings in 3 days. Click here or the link below to view it. That is the resource basically that they're sharing. Kind regards, the sender's name. And then the final 2 steps here, they would wait 3 days and then they'll send basically their breakup email, which is any feedback on the resource I sent you a couple days ago. Just curious, have you had a chance to look at it? And then a final message. I'm sure you have a lot on your plate right now. I know LinkedIn can get quite overwhelming with messages. I would love to have a chat and hear about your lead generation process and see if I can help you with that. So what do you think? Where would you add the cold call here and how would you modify the sequence?
Okay. Am I looking at content of emails, or am I just looking at the sequence?
You can just look at the sequence. I mean, I take the content into consideration, but
yeah. So I have a fairly universal recommendation on sequencing, which is that actually the sequence itself doesn't make a huge amount of difference. What makes a difference is the content in it and what you're actually doing. So, and my second point, which I would say to any sequence in B2B, is that you need to have the phone in the first 2 or 3 steps.
Okay.
Full stop. And that's just, again, personal belief based on the way I sell and what I've seen work. And I can validate that in terms of the amount of outreach programs we've run and all that sort of stuff. But for me, my standard default in any sequence would always be phone first, before anything else. What I never understand is why people would say, I really believe this can help you, when you've never actually had a conversation with me. How on earth can you know that? What's that based on? Your desk research of something that you pulled from Crunchbase or whatever it might be, that might give you some generic information. You know nothing about where we are as a business. You know nothing about what's worked for us in the last quarter, what hasn't, where our big pain points are, where my priorities are. So starting to make assumptions at that point. I think that was about step 3. So for me, the call has to come in before there. You've got to have a conversation in. My ideal scenario would be, either phone call and a LinkedIn connection on the same day, or LinkedIn connection, phone call the next day. I think sending the email first, yeah, fine. But you think about the open rates on these emails that step two will give you. and the amount that you've got to send and all that sort of stuff. Now, okay, we can automate that nowadays. You think about if you get that prospect on the phone and you can structure the conversation the right way. What an incredible opportunity to build rapport. Emails don't do that for you, and it makes it very hard. So my view is always in here, I would be, I think what was it, the LinkedIn message or the LinkedIn profile visit? Was it the step number 5 was the one where it's like, I really think that,
I think,
I really believe that. So in this, it's got to be before step 5.
yeah.
And I would argue there's one after that as well. So I'd say it's got at least 2 attempts in here. And let's be fair on something. Putting a cold call as a step in there is not making one attempt and, they didn't answer the phone, so I'll leave it. It's a conversation. You've got to work bloody hard to get a conversation across those days. And the conversation will hopefully be the factor that means you don't need the rest of the steps, because you either get a yes or a no from them on that. You put them into nurture if it's a no, or a maybe, or a not right now, and you convert them into a meeting if it's a yes. I'm not a fan of the passive SDR that lives behind email and LinkedIn full stop.
Yeah.
So get on the phone as soon as you can.
For sure. Phone is so helpful to actually talk to someone and to start up a conversation. Like you said, it really personalizes your sequence. So I definitely recommend it. Maybe for this sequence, a good idea would have been to put it after step 2. So after this step here, this email step, you could add in a call, for example, before, because that way, if they did open the email, they already have that context a bit. You can still use some of the information from it and then continue on with the rest of the sequence. And then, like Owen said, add one maybe towards the end here, around 6 or 7.
And Brianna, I think one of the great points of this is that, in Lemlist or whatever it is, you've got that data to know if they've opened it, and you've got data to tell you how many people open it. So if you're sending that email 100 times and only 5 people are opening it, guess what? Replace the email with a call.
Yeah.
If 50 people are opening it, great. That's giving you, like you say, put a call in afterwards. They already know you. They might recognize the brand. They've got some context. So yeah.
For sure. And you can always, if you see that someone replied, for example, why not pick up the phone and call them instead of emailing them back? They already replied. They know you. They see that you can tell that they're interested a bit. Why not? Give it a shot. Hopefully that will help some people. I know you guys were a bit worried about that, about starting your calls first time. You are using LinkedIn and email, which is a great step already, but adding a call is a great way to add like that extra personal touch to your sequence. And it can be scary, but don't worry. I think that you guys can kill it. You just got to start. All right, so let me go to the next part. So here we're going to have true or false cold calling edition. So this is all advice that I have received about cold calls, and I am really excited to see Owen's thoughts on them. Some of them I got years ago. Some of them have been more recent. So I'm pumped to see what we can come up here with. And let us know in the comments how things are going, what you're getting out of this, and some funny advice that you have also gotten that maybe you can look at. All right, so the first one here. Okay, you should take notes during the call and add them to your CRM.
The majority of the time, yes, I think you should. I think you should be absolutely taking notes that you can refer back to in future conversations.
Yes, I believe that as well. Definitely true. It can help you so much later on. You can get all your cold calls done in 1 hour a day.
Yeah, if you want to miss target, you can.
I love that, because I've heard so many people say that. You just need 1 hour a day.
It's like starting a marathon and giving up after 100 meters. It doesn't make sense. This is not the right strategy.
Do you have a recommendation on how long you should spend roughly?
Look, I think again, I would use data to inform that decision.
Yeah.
So it is different depending on what your target market is. I'll give you an example. We work with one of the major banks running an outbound SDR campaign into retail and hospitality establishments, garages, shops, cafes, restaurants, about their card terminal. So payment, card machine for nobody responds to email in those sorts of businesses. Yeah. Nobody's on LinkedIn. They're not hanging out. So the answer is all day. You should be cold calling all day, because that's the right channel for that particular market. If you're targeting HR directors in enterprise, then you probably want to spend less time on the phone and do more follow-up calls and be reaching out digitally, because they don't tend to answer the phone so much. So there isn't a one size fits all. But for me, I think you should be spending at least let's just say the loose middle answer is half your day. If you're spending more than that, for me, I think you're a keyboard warrior SDR salesperson, which is like, I actually don't want to talk to people. Probably sales isn't the right job for you. You should probably find something else where in marketing or whatever, where you can spend a bit more time not talking to people. But I think the best SDRs I've ever worked with all have one thing in common, which is that they spend a lot of time on the phone.
Yeah. And once you get started, I think you build a momentum and it gets a lot easier. I mean, even if you're someone that is not as comfortable on the phone, once you start, first 30 minutes, after that, you're just on a roll and it gets a lot easier after that.
Yeah.
All right. So here we go. Use a permission-based opener to ask for their time. How do you feel about that one?
It can work. So this is neither true nor false, because it's like, you should. I don't think you should. So I ask for help rather than time. That's my personal preference. I'm a big believer that openers need to feel natural for you. They need to feel comfortable for you. So what I hear is all of the experts preaching, this is the way you should open a cold call. I can tell you what not to do, which is, for me, how are you today? It just breaks me whenever whenever someone calls me and says, hey Owen, how are you today? And I'm thinking, who on earth is this? Why do you even care? Imagine if I said, I'm terrible, I've got leprosy. It doesn't matter. It's not real. It's just a complete waste of time. So I can tell you the things that you shouldn't do: over enthusiasm, high pitched voice, high energy. Whoa, you scared me off, all that kind of stuff. But the right opener is absolutely, for me, is permission based, because you're looking to earn trust and build rapport, and that's how we do that with humans. But whether it's ask for time, for me, I ask for help. So I would say, hey Brianna, it's Owen calling from Air Marketing. Look, I know we haven't spoken before. I'm just hoping you can help me out for a moment. And I just pause and let people into the conversation. And it's quite a nice, gentle way,
yeah, it's very smooth
way of talking to somebody. Yeah. So that's my preferred. I would deliver that happily 50 times a day, 100 times a day, with confidence and comfort that it feels like it's me talking rather than a script or something unnatural.
Yeah, for sure. Some of these that I've seen are really cool. Like, they look very fun, permission-based openers, but it almost feels scripted, and you can just tell that they've done this 5,000 times, and it
And the
hurts.
time thing, none of us will be brave enough to say, could I have 8 to 10 minutes of your time right now when I've phoned you? Because that's what we want, right? We want to have a long conversation with you. We'll all go, can I have 15 seconds? And as I said earlier, it's like, it's a lie. You don't want 15 seconds. We're starting a new relationship on a very obvious lie. Why would we do that? We want this person to trust us.
That's very true.
It does not make sense.
All right. So then the next one. Okay. Use an out of the box intro as a pattern interrupt.
So for me, a pattern interrupt is only a pattern interrupt for a very short period of time, and then it stops being a pattern interrupt and starts being a script that everyone's heard before. So, the amount of times I've been cold called now and say, can I have 27 seconds to tell you why I called? And I think, I know where you got that from. Again, this is for me. So I like to buy from human beings. I like to engage with normal human being conversations. If you deliver that to me and I've heard it before, as long as I've heard it once before, it's not you, it's somebody else. And this is my style. This is who I am as a person. I want to engage on a human to human level, not on a sales script to human level. Now, we need to structure our conversation, but it needs to be personal to you or your organization. Nothing is a pattern interrupt for long. It stops being a pattern interrupt. It only interrupts my pattern if I don't expect it. And unfortunately, these things quickly become habits for people. So if you've got a great one that you can come up with that just gets a response, yeah, absolutely. That's a great way to get a little laugh, build a bit of rapport, just get people actually into the conversation, engaged, but don't use someone else's. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, I agree. I think they work for a while, and then after that, everyone starts using them, and they become well known. One that I have really liked for both email and calls is if you immediately start your call with some personalization, so some sort of line. So you say, hey, first name, and then you immediately say something about them that shows that you know who they are, and that kind of starts it off. It's not just a normal cold call, and then you go into what you would normally say.
Look, I think that works. And again, this is about being human. So in
Yeah.
the absence of relevancy, which is your most powerful tool in outreach, I think if you can be relevant really quickly, they'll engage. So I think that's a good point. So if you've got research or data on this person, or you've had a look, and you can say something that's relevant, that's interesting, that they want to talk about as well, it's got to be interesting, then you that can absolutely work. Problem with that is, can you scale that? Can you do that enough times in a day? And that's where I like the intro that I use, being conscious we haven't spoken before, just hoping you can help me out for a moment, because in the absence of relevancy, it's honesty.
Yes.
And I think it's not as powerful, but it's something I can do every single time without thinking too much.
And I've seen for people that are using email and want to scale email and calls, what I've seen people do is basically take that icebreaker tag that they normally use, which is a personalized sentence, and kind of switch things around a little bit. So you're really using the same info, but just kind of formatting it differently in your call. And it still is a personalized line that, people aren't, I get so many emails today. I'm not really focused on what icebreaker you sent me in the first email and that I didn't respond to if you're calling me. So that can definitely help. Okay. Now optimize your call schedule to fit when it's best for you. So as a rep.
Maybe in this one, true. So yes, it could be true. I would actually flip it and say optimize your call schedule to fit when it's best for contact rates. So, if your prospects answer the phone more in the afternoon, then make calls in the afternoon, because there are industry sector persona habits around this. And again, we're big fans of being data led. So if the data tells me that people answer the phone twice as much in the afternoon, but it suits me in the morning, I'm going to get a better outcome. So, for me, I'm always looking to maximize efficiency and effectiveness. There is an argument to say that when I'm in the right mood, I can be better at it though. So
Yeah.
I do think, taking that into account in the equation is valid, but I wouldn't put all the weight into that argument.
Okay. Sounds good. Let's move through
And just Brianna, on that, I'll give you an example. I'm a morning person, high energy in the morning, but by the end of the day, I don't want to be on I haven't got as much energy.
Yeah.
So that is valid and true.
Yeah. And I guess it would also depend where you're reaching out to. For me, when I was doing cold calls, I was here in France, but I was reaching out to people in the States. And it didn't matter if I was a morning person. If I tried to call people in the morning, my results would not be very good.
Exactly. Why'd you wake me up again?
Yeah, exactly. All right. And don't spend too much time on the research. Use info you already got from your email or LinkedIn sequence.
Yeah, look, I'm a big believer that that too many sales reps spend time hiding behind research. As an organization, I find it very hard to quantify. So we've got 60 SDRs in our business. If the brief is go and do research on your prospects, I've seen people without specifics in the past drown an hour. And then they've got loads of research. They bring the big sheet of or a printout A4 sheet, and you'd fill it if you printed it out, not that you would. And I think great. And then I said, right, go and phone that person. And guess what? They're not available. They're on annual leave for a week. And I think, well, that was a good use of time this week, wasn't it? So for me, if you're going to do research, I'm looking for something that goes fast. I'm looking for something that scales. Absolutely, you either want to have somebody else doing it, so your salesperson can be selling.
Yeah.
And if that research is integral to your relevancy and your market and you need it, I would actually split it out. I'd separate it into somebody who's good at research, give the research to the sales rep, because sales reps aren't necessarily good researchers and vice versa. But my ideal scenario is that while you're either, if you are making cold calls, while you're making that dialogue, while you're getting through the receptionist or the gatekeeper, bring the website up, you'll find something that's relevant enough in that, in a matter of seconds, and you can move a lot faster. So I'm not against research, but I am against research for the sake of research that takes a long time at the impact of productivity.
Yeah, for sure. We always, for email at least, we usually recommend that you spend maximum 5 minutes trying to find an icebreaker and some sort of info to use in your emails. And I think if you're doing emails and cold calls, you can really easily do the same 5 minutes of research and use it for your call and for your entire sequence and not have to spend more time on that.
And there are, I totally agree. And there are cheats on this. So things like, for example, let's go back to that example of the cold call, you don't have to do it on the screen, but where it was like talking to CTOs in certain sectors. if I've got my data strategy right and I'm targeting CTOs
Yes.
in businesses of a certain size that are in certain sectors, I can almost always know what their problems are likely to be. If I know my market well enough, and if I don't, it's really easy to go and find out. You just go and Google their job description. Go and Google the job description of a CTO at a manufacturing company or a CTO, or go and look on the job boards then and look for an example of similar role, because their responsibilities will be their problems, or the objectives of the role will be the problems that they've got with. And if I've got 100 people that look similar, then actually I can be relevant without having to do specific company research. So there are cheats on it that can help you look like you're well researched and you're relevant without having to do it en masse. You can do it once at the beginning.
Yeah, for sure. And I always tell this to loan listers as well for their emails. It's so much more helpful if you kind of bucket your leads according to who exactly you're reaching out to, because then you can just add so much relevancy just by speaking to only these people. It just completely changes the game.
Totally. And I don't know about you, Brianna, but when I receive emails that are clearly well researched, there's a tipping point where it becomes creepy and a bit annoying. Like there's a point where I can tell you're trying to be relevant, and there's a point where I think, Jesus, like if I look out the window, am I going to find you in a tree with a pair of binoculars? It feels odd. And I think that cheesiness, there's definitely a line where it's too much for me as a buyer.
Yeah, for sure. I completely agree that usually for us, we recommend adding one line in the email, but there was one, I can't remember if it was during a teardown. I think it was, that I read out an email that I was like, if someone sent this to me, I would be really scared. This is pretty much an entirely personalized email, and it's just too much at one point. So I definitely advise, I mean, for at least emails and I think calls as well, you don't need to add that much as long as you're relevant and it shows that you know what you're doing.
Yeah, and look, I think I had one where I think they had my kids' names, and they knew I'd posted about 2 years ago about like a favorite song or a favorite movie or something. I can't remember what it was, and it was all in there. And I'm thinking, yeah, no, too much.
My goodness.
I'm not going to talk to the person.
Definitely way too much. All right, we're going to go through these fast here because I see we're almost at the time to ask some questions. Always come back to their objections with an answer no matter what.
So I'm going to give you a really simple formula to objections that we use that for me work globally. So we call it diffuse statement question. So you give me an objection and I'd say, look, that's absolutely fine. Not a problem at all. That's me diffusing the situation, taking the pressure and the negativity out. Then I'd make a statement. Look, most of the people I speak to actually tell me the same thing. I hear it quite a lot every day. You know, that kind of normalizing it. And what it does is just buy me time to think of the right question. And then I said, Brianna, tell me out of interest, and I'll ask a discovery question. So absolutely fine, not a problem. Most of the people I speak to say exactly the same thing. Tell me, out of interest, when was the last time you did that? And I just go back into discovery. And that for me is like a global, I can handle any objection strategy. So yeah, I'm not giving an answer, I'm giving a question.
That's great. That's awesome. And also for you guys, I will be taking notes, and then later you'll see our community experts will also get a copy of that. But I will also share the key insights basically at the end tomorrow as well. All right. And then call people out on the, can you just send me an email response? So I've heard this advice before. Here, let me see the exact. It says instead say something like, okay, first name, can I ask you an awkward question? I've done a lot of these cold calls, and generally when someone says this, I spend a lot of time putting a beautiful email together, and it's really just their way of telling me they aren't interested in my lame cold call. Am I completely off base with that? Do you think that's a good response to that, or how would you go about it?
I'd shorten it, but I do. I think it's the right response. So I can confidently tell you that the last person who said, can you just send me an email instead, didn't buy from you. And that's the reality. So it's another one of those things where it's almost like a comfort blanket for salespeople. Oh, I'll get absorbed in this. Oh, look, I'm being productive. Yeah, no, look, it doesn't work. You know when somebody genuinely wants an email because they'll guide you on what they want to see. Actually, I need you to send me an email because I've got to go and speak to my business partner about this. I'm a visual person. I'd like to have this and that in front of me. Or I haven't got a pen in front of me, so I didn't take notes. And I'd just like to understand this, this, and this. When it's a default generic, can you just send me an email? What they mean is no. So you've got two choices: accept that it's a no and call them out on it, or try to find a way to get back into the conversation and continue it.
All right, sounds good. Now the next one here. All right, when you reach gatekeepers, you should be assumptive and say something like, hey, Jay, I was calling to talk to Bob. So for example, if you reach your front desk.
Yeah, so this for me is a personality thing. I think there are two types of sales reps. There's somebody who likes to talk to people and can't play the I'm tough guy or tough gal, and there are people that like to that can play that more assertive role. And I think you have to play to style with this. So you can't get people who are that sort of positive, friendly, warm character to start being really, I'll just probably talk to Bob, and with that straight voice. And this has to be delivered really assertively to work. So I think it's about playing to the style, but this does work if you deliver it well. Absolutely does work.
All right. So you got to be smooth, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And assertion is the importance today. Confident, tone, calm, but assertive.
All right. And then the last one here is to ask them to accept your calendar invite during the call. So at the end, when you say, okay, I'm going to go ahead and send you the calendar invite. And then I've heard people say you should tell them to accept it right then. What do you think?
I guess my question would be, why wouldn't you?
Okay. Sounds good.
I mean, there's no reason not to. And, you know, attendance rate in a virtual world is one of the biggest challenges with booking meetings. So if it has a 1% impact on the likelihood of them remembering it and it being in their meeting, why wouldn't you at least ask the question?
Yeah, for sure. All right, sounds good. So we don't have too much time left, so I think we can just go ahead and go through the main sections of a cold call for you guys just starting out, so you can kind of get a better idea of how to structure cold calls. So go ahead, Owen, if you want to break down the 5 main sections here.
Yeah, I can just give you a really quick cold call example for what we do, which is outsourced SDR. So I would start, here's my cold call structure, and you can just make it relevant for you. So I'd say, hi, Brianna, it's Owen calling from Air Marketing. You and I haven't spoken before, but I'm just hoping you can help me out for a moment. Then I would hopefully get a yes of some sort. And I go into my pitch, which would be, look, we help organizations such as, so my typical phrase would be, we help SaaS companies, ambitious SaaS companies, who are struggling to build enough pipeline and get their SDRs performing consistently, or who have got more SDRs that miss target than hit them. So I'm picking out a pain point that we see in the market at the moment. So right now, the market is telling us that people are struggling to get headcount budget for SDRs. So that might be one of the things we talk about. You'll know the problems that your prospects suffer from, but I'm keeping that bit really short. So we help ambitious SaaS organizations whose SDRs are simply not hitting target regularly enough and who avoid the phone at all costs at the cost of revenue and pipeline generation. Simple, short, powerful. Now, obviously, this is one of my favorite phrases in cold call. Obviously, I don't know enough about your situation to know if something like this would make sense for you. So would it be okay if I just ask you a couple of quick questions? I can deliver that in 20 seconds, and I can deliver it calmly, coolly in 20 seconds. And what I'm doing is inviting them back into the conversation. Hopefully I get a yes. I might get a no, but at least I'm in a two-way conversation and I'm in discovery mode anyway.
It feels really natural. I mean, it's just like talking to one of your colleagues.
That's what you want. And that's what you want, because I don't want to talk to a robot or a salesperson. I want to talk to a human.
And guys, also notice that the pitch section, when he's talking, it's not at all focused on him and what he does. It's completely focused on solving the problem, my problems, and what I need help with, which is especially where a lot of people go wrong in cold calls, is immediately picking up the phone and saying, I want to tell you all about what I offer. And no one wants to sit and listen to someone talk about what they offer, especially when, like he said, how do you know that they know it's a good fit for you? I mean, are you just going to waste your time right there?
Brianna, just on that, I can book a meeting from a cold call, and so can you guys, without telling them what you actually do.
Yes.
You can literally never mention it, and they book a meeting, and afterwards they go, I know what they're going to help me, but I have no idea how they do it.
Exactly.
It's possible to do that.
I love that. All right. Well, I think we can go ahead, unless you want to touch on anything else here, I think we can go ahead and move to questions.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, great. So let me go ahead and just go through here. All right. There we go. So go ahead and ask your questions in the chat, guys. By the way, yes, a recording of this is going to be available. So I have one question to start out, and this is something that I got very frequently when I was calling before, is that the phone numbers for people I was calling was before COVID, basically. So it was the office phone number, and I would call, I would get a gatekeeper, and they say, oh, this person is not at the office because they're now working remotely. How would you handle that conversation?
So I would always ask for the mobile number for starters.
Okay.
I think, in a world where people are remote more than they were before, I think it's become even more acceptable. We run a challenge in our team for how many mobile numbers you can gather in a day. You'd be surprised by how many people will give it out if you just ask assumptively.
Really?
Yeah, they really do. And I'm not saying everybody, nothing happens all the time. But if you get 5 mobile numbers a day, that might be 5 more conversations you have. So my default response to that would be, okay, great. Can I have his mobile number and just give him a call directly on that? And I'd just be really assumptive and really confident with asking for that, or direct dial as well. Obviously, there are strategic things you can do in the background around data. There are data tools that will help you to find direct dials. I'm going to be tool agnostic and not necessarily tell you which ones are great or not, because it's different sector by sector. But there are strategies you can use to get that data with direct dials and mobile numbers in the first place. But if I was in that situation, I didn't have it, I'd absolutely ask for a mobile number.
Okay. And do you think people, when you call them on their cell phone, do you think people are kind of caught off guard? And does anyone get mad about that? Or
I think in today's world, people kind of expect it, and bear in mind you got that mobile number from somewhere, so it's not like you magicked it or begged, stolen, borrowed. You got it. You just asked a question and someone gave it to you, or you used a publicly available tool and found the number. Do you get it? Yeah, but do you know what? You used to get people annoyed that you phoned them on their office phone as well. So
yeah, it's true.
it's nothing new. And the beauty of the mobile number is they don't have to answer it if they don't want to. So they've chosen to answer that call not knowing who it was that was phoning them. You've probably got the kind of profile of person that's not going to shout and scream at you.
Yeah, that's true. All right, so we have a question from Laura here. Is how many on average connected cold calls should an SDR make?
How many connect? So assuming, this depends on your research strategy and the sequences, but let's just strip out every other tool and say, if you were just doing a cold calling session, what would that look like? I would, and it ranges depending on conversation length and all that sort of stuff. I would want a rep making at least 10 calls in an hour, and probably more like 15 if the connect rate is low, 15, 16, maybe 17, 18, depending. You'll connect, and the connect rates vary geography to geography massively, but within the UK, which is where we do most of our work, we tend to see a sort of 1 to 10 ratio where we actually get hold of the right person and we're speaking to somebody. So you want 1 to 2 good conversations an hour. It'd be my goal. If you can push it to 2, that's that's the best metric. Not how many calls you make, but how many times you actually have a relevant conversation with the decision maker.
Yeah, for sure. And for me, when I was doing calls, what I noticed was if you're reaching out to one specific target, for example, there's usually, I mean, at least for me, I found the best times and days to call. And I realized that I could have a lot more good calls if I called during that time period than if I tried, different times as well.
Yeah.
Next question is, how do you typically find your leads?
So by leads, we mean the people we're going to call in the first place, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, fine. So there are data suppliers out there that will give you profiled data that you can target. So one of my pieces of advice around this is that salespeople shouldn't be building data. I think I see it so often where people have got SDR teams of 10 people and they've got them building data half their life. And you think, well, these people are not data people. They're not research specialists. They don't want to be doing admin. You've hired them because they're great at talking to people. They're great at selling. They want to engage with people. And you've got them sat in front of a desk typing numbers into an Excel spreadsheet. It just doesn't make sense. Or building, or finding people on Navigator to go and call. For me, we want to be giving that to salespeople. So Sales Navigator is a great tool if you want to pump people into a sequence digitally. Won't get your phone numbers. There are tools out there. I don't know if we're allowed to say what tools are out there, but there are SaaS providers out there who will give you phone numbers as part of a data tool. And in the UK and Europe specifically, I'm not sure so much about the US, but I think it's available. Is you get data brokers, data providers who will sell you or rent you data based on a profile. So I can go and say, I want this kind of decision maker in that kind of organization of that size in this geographical region who have done this in the last 2 years or whatever it might be. And they'll bring me data that I can utilize and process for the sake of that campaign. So those are the sorts of strategies I would look for. What I would be avoiding is reps building out data, because you just lose control on who you're talking to. Like, your list is your strategy, me. It's that these are the people I want to go and sell to. That's not
Yeah.
something reps should decide. That's something the company should decide.
Yep, that's a good point. I know a lot of reps do have to do that, but I guess also to kind of go off this question, it really does depend on who you're reaching out to as well for how you collect that data and to determine what is best to collect it, basically. So for us, yes, we will use a lot of Sales Nav because it collects a lot of info. Salespeople are there. It makes sense for us. But in past organizations that I was working for, it just depended on where we can find the most and the best information, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. And then let's see here. Some top strategies. So Laura, again, top strategies, getting payments on the agreed time. It says usually payments are late and clients need calls and reminders even after they miss a deadline.
God, we're talking about getting clients to pay, are we?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Looks like it.
It's probably not my area of expertise, to be honest. I'd have to bring my head of finance in, but I do think, and here's something I learned early in starting my own business. We have 100 people now, but when I started it, we had one, and then naturally 2 and 3. So I was head of finance for a while there and trying to work all that sort of stuff out. The one learning I got from that is when you pick up the phone and talk to people, they're usually pretty friendly about it and give you an explanation. And what most people chasing payments do is hide behind email. They don't like the conversation themselves, so they'll send them an email saying when you're going to pay, and people don't respond. So I think my advice to most things in life, whether it's account management, finance, whatever it is, if you've got a problem, pick up the phone and talk to that person, because they usually don't want confrontation either, and they usually have a very amicable conversation with you. So yeah, go talk to people. It makes life so much better.
All right. And then let's see here. Is Owen invited to the Lumbar tomorrow? We have an event going on at the office. If you would like, Owen, you're more than welcome to join us in Paris.
In Paris? Oh, geez. What time are the flights? I haven't looked.
Definitely
I would love to, but maybe give me a bit more notice next time.
Yeah, just a tad. And Andrew here, how can you bring down the lead subconscious guard in your first 30 seconds? Great question.
Yeah, good question. So we've kind of touched on this a little bit. For me, it's about, we've got to earn trust, and we have to recognize that. We've got to get people out of, this is a salesperson selling to me. And, my mindset is, I can feel this person wants to sell to me because they're behaving like a salesperson. They're scripted. They clearly know what they want to say. They're only focused on trying to book a meeting or trying to sell to me. They're being selfish. And for me, it's like, you can tell when somebody genuinely is curious and wants to talk to you. They're a little bit more authentic. Their tone is more relaxed. They're not over enthusiastic acting. They're just themselves. And I think you can hear and sense that. And this is where I talk about practice. People like, practice your pitch, practice, but never let your personality fall out of it. Never let you as a human fall out of it. That honesty up front, inviting them into the conversation, making it permission-based, those sorts of things, allow them to see you as a person. And that's what you need, because I can't trust an actor, somebody who's not who they are, but I can trust somebody that I can tell is being authentic. So yeah, we all have it. I do this as a living. And when somebody makes a sales call to me, I'm in that buyer mode. I'm in protective, subconscious, I don't want to talk to you buyer mode. And the way to break that down is to be human with me, be normal. But we seem to be able to not or struggle to be normal when we're trying to sell for some reason.
It's so true.
To take the pressure out of it, make it normal, make it informal, make it comfortable, and recognize that person on the other end of the phone is feeling uncomfortable because you phoned them out of the blue, and make it your responsibility to make them realize that it's okay. I think it's very hard to do one thing, but it's about that tone and that intent. And remember, here's one of the core things I talk about around mindset. The purpose of a cold call is not to book a meeting. And the moment you realize that the purpose of a cold call is to find out if there's a fit between what you can do to help a company and what the problems that they have, or the issues that they have, or the opportunities that they're looking to go and achieve something, the moment you realize that, you make your agenda about, can I learn? Can I be curious? Can I engage with this person and have a really good conversation with them? If you make your objective and your agenda about, can I have a really good conversation with this person, it makes life a lot easier, because you don't feel like a salesperson. You feel like a human. Whereas when my mindset is, I've got to go and book a meeting with this person every time, I feel like a salesperson. So guess what? I behave like a salesperson.
For sure. And do you recommend, I have seen some cold call scripts, especially for people that are starting out and that are nervous, that recommend to actually just be honest with the prospect about that and say, hey, I'm calling from this. I don't really like doing these calls. I'm a bit nervous, like something
Yeah.
like this. Do you think that's a good
Human,
strategy?
vulnerable, human, vulnerable, like
Yeah.
all of those things that make me connect with somebody, right? I like you more if you tell me something about yourself. And you know what? This is going to go right in the face of what I've said about authenticity. I've used that 5 years into a job before when I've got caught up and I've gone, do you know what? I'm really new in this role. Can you just give me a second to work this out? And people, they go, yeah, of course. You get a totally different reaction.
Yeah.
Okay, that might not be as authentic, but what you're getting is vulnerability and you get human. You're getting
Yeah.
something that's human, that you're accepting that you're not perfect all the time. And I think anything that it's a bit like a pattern interrupt as well to some degree, that people
It
don't
is.
expect
Yeah.
you to say that, like ultra authenticity, ultra honesty in
Mm.
the early days of making a cold call. Yeah, what a great way to lead. Hey, this is Zoe calling from air marketing. Just so you know, I've not made many cold calls. I reckon you get a really good response out of that versus, oh, how are you today? Well, you definitely would.
Yeah. How are you? And also something that I wanted to help you guys out as well when you do these with cold calls and emails is if you're not knowing when to kind of be casual and when to be formal, especially if you're reaching out to a more formal
Mm,
audience, usually my go-to is to keep it formal when you're describing what you do and what you can help them with, but be really informal on the way that you get that across. Like first your mannerisms, and then as well, just leading into it, just say, hey, you're kind of just, it feels like you're talking more to a colleague and that
mm,
first part. And then during the pitch, if you want to get more formal because you're reaching out to a formal audience, then that can work, but that kind of balances it out a bit.
mm.
All right, so let's see here. Yes, we will have a recording later for the people asking again here. But there we go. So I'm the lead. What does it sound like? Ring, ring, hello? Yeah, I mean, it usually people will, I mean, your call will come up, you come up, and the person says hello on the other end.
I wonder what Andrew's
Um,
asking there. I think he might have a cryptic question that we've not worked out.
yeah. Let me see here. Okay, and then what would be a good strategy for local lead gen?
Local lead gen. I'm not sure I understand the question.
I think that means like to local businesses, for example. So if you're trying to reach out to people in your area.
I don't think it changes, other than you've got something in common
Yeah.
that's relevant, right? So I think I'd absolutely be adding that. One of the things I found with one campaign we worked on in the past is, using where you actually are based. Oh, I'm based on so and so street, so that kind of stuff that just
Yeah.
makes it super, super, super. Oh, I know that. It's like a point of common interest, but outside of that, I don't think it really, really changes. You just got an extra point of relevancy.
Yeah, I had a call a few weeks ago with someone. I mean, it wasn't a cold call, it was just a normal video call. But I
Yeah.
always ask at the beginning where people are located just because I'm curious. And normally people just don't really care that much. But I got one where he was located in my hometown and I'm in Paris,
Mm,
obviously. So we had a nice conversation around that. I think
yeah.
it's always fun.
Yeah.
All
Oh,
right.
Andrew's
And
Andrew's given us the answer to his question. We
I'm
did this
trying.
earlier, Andrew. Do you want me to do it again? Is it worth doing it again?
Yeah, sure, why not?
So Andrew, I'll give you my cold call script for what we do. We're an outsourced SDR agency. So I'd say, hey Andrew, it's Owen calling from Air Marketing. Look, I know we're not spoken before, but I'm just hoping you can help me out for a moment. Hopefully I get a positive response at that point. And then I'd say, look, we help ambitious SaaS organizations to drive new business pipeline in. Most of the people we speak to are struggling to get SDRs to pick up the phone consistently. And as a result, that's impacting on pipeline and revenue. Now, I don't know enough about your situation to know if something like this might even make sense for you. So do you mind if I ask you just a couple of quick questions? I don't need 30 seconds to get to that point. It's got to be less than 30 seconds for the record, by the way, as well.
Thanks again for that. And yep,
No
don't
worries.
worry, guys. This will also be available for you to watch back, and I will share, like I said, the key aspects later. So this takes us to our next slide here. So make sure to check, and if you're in Lumless Family, check the Sales Talk space, and you will get a recording of today's workshop, a recap from the key points for today. And for people that are community experts, you'll also get my notes following the workshop today. And also, guys, make sure that you are following Owen on LinkedIn as well. He has tons of tips that are available for everyone. I'm sharing the link here and up in the comments. Sorry about that. There we go. All right. Oh, sorry, guys. 1 second here. All right, there you go. There is his LinkedIn profile. So make sure you're following him for more cold call tips. And then, like I said, I'll also send an email. If you guys are not in Lemla's family, I will send you an email with the recording as well. And big thank you for Owen for all of his advice today. And definitely, like I said, check that out. And then you can also see his podcast here and also the Air Marketing page. So I will go ahead and send that to you as well. And then if you're not in Lemla's family, I will share a link with you as well. That way you can access all of this. There we go. And if you have any more questions, you can also comment on that post in Lemla's family once I put that up tomorrow, and I will try to answer your questions as soon as possible. There we go. Let me just get all the links over here to you guys. All right, so this one is the podcast over here with Owen, and then lastly, I will share the link to their LinkedIn profile. All right, there you go. You guys have all your links here available to you, so you can still see them after we stop this live, and you'll have the recording available as well. And then, like I said, check Lemla's family, and we'll have everything available for you here, including the key points. If you're not a part of it, I will send it to you by email. Once again, thank you guys so much for tuning in. And again, big thank you for Owen for all your tips today.